2024 meeting of the Barnstable Community Preservation Committee to order. This meeting of the Community Preservation Committee is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Mass General Law, Check 30A, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting and to please make their presence known. Seeing none, Ellen, would you call the roll call the members?
Harry Duenas.
Here.
Deb Converse. Not yet. Catherine Garofoli.
Here.
Tom Lee.
Present.
Farley Lewis.
Here.
Steve Robichaud.
Here.
Lindsay Council.
Here. Thank you very much. First item is the approval of the draft Community Preservation Committee regular meeting minutes from November 25th, 2024. Any changes or additions to that? Look pretty good to me. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the draft meeting minutes from the November 24th, 2024 meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ellen, would you call the roll?
Ellen. Sorry.
Harry Duenas.
Yes.
Catherine Garofoli.
Yes.
Tom Lee.
Yes.
Farley Lewis.
Yes.
Steve Robichaud.
Yes.
Lindsay Council.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Now we move to the letters of intent. The letter of intent has been received from the Department of Public Works requesting $341,595 in community preservation funds for the exterior restoration work to the Centerville Recreation Building located at 524 Main Street, Centerville, map 207,
Hi, Deb.
parcel
How you doing?
043. Proposed improvements include the replacement or repair of the portico, trim, and exterior door replacement, as well as partial roof replacement. This funding request represents the total estimated project cost with prior plumbing and building improvements performed in 2015 and 2017 provided as matching funding. The building was originally constructed in 1880 and is listed as a contributing building in the National Register Historic District. And we have Richard Ventrone from the Department of Public Works here with us to discuss the project.
Again, good evening, everyone. In terms of the presentation that we have, is that something that you all will pull up for me?
Yes, I can pull that up for you.
Thank you so much. And is that you, David, just doing it?
Yes. Yeah, give me 1 second.
Will you be able to control it for me as well? There's really only one or two slides, but yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Yes, I think we can, you've effectively, this is the ball fields one, is the one we have first. So why don't we go, these are not in order, and I apologize for that. So if you go down there to number 7, please. So is this the right one? I believe it is. Yes. So let's go to the next one. What you read, Lindsay, was more than enough. I won't bore you by repeating that again. I think graphically it's better to just show you the image. If you have any questions, I can go over it. So we've done extensive work on this building, on the interiors, as I'm sure you're all aware. One of the projects we're working on now are the windows. So the windows need to be replaced, for which we have funding. We have to do that. But the exterior, as all exteriors, has as it spells out, suffered some damage and just degradation over the years. Very obvious here, you see on the lower right image is are the columns, which they're made very much effectively, they're barrels. Think of them as being barrels. So they have staves, just like a barrel. They're hollow, but they are indeed structural. And they have over time just suffered damage and faded. So a part of the work would be the restoration of these really important parts. They were added to the building. They're not, if you've seen the original historic image, they were not part of the original building, but they've acquired significance now during the time that they have, and they're something we want to, of course, keep. So again, the door restoration, replacement, and in the restoration of the exterior siding, to the degree that we need to replace, ideally we would keep what we could of it. And roof leak, we have some roof leaks, evaluating that and repairing it. And we'll be talking about this along the same issue as it relates to the West Barnstable train station. The worst thing that can happen to a building is for it to have water infiltration. So we always want to stay ahead of that. So we want to make sure that that's also taken care of, and that we don't have any leaks, because it very quickly can affect all kinds of systems, and particularly being that we've put so much effort into the exterior and the interiors, rather. I apologize. We want to make sure we have historic murals on the second floor. So this is the project. Again, I'd love it to have questions if you have it, or if you feel I haven't given you sufficient information, please let me know.
All right, questions from members? Go ahead, Terry.
Lindsay, I have a question that's going to actually pertain to all the next four letters of intent. I was wondering if there's a way that we could get in the application a little bit of historical research on how much community preservation money has been involved since certainly the beginning of the CPA, that we can look and see, so that we can get kind of a historical timeline on what's been done and what's been repaired on this, not only what the town has spent in budgeting, but in community preservation money. Would that be a big deal? I for some reason, doesn't seem like it would be.
I don't think it would be on our end. Certainly, we have the applications, and Mark has spreadsheets on all that we've been given on all of these buildings. And I think it's a good thing to have, because knowing that we neither have the capacity to design it, and have it all done in one time, nor do you have the capacity to give us full funding for these. They're often, almost every one of them, is done in a series of phases that we prioritize depending on the need. So it's a valuable thing to have, and certainly we can provide you with that.
Great, thanks.
Excellent question, Terry. And I think going forward, we could combine the various. We have some of these have outstanding balances. I believe that's what you mentioned too, Richard, when you talked about the windows.
Correct.
I think that's still open. So if we could put them in groups under Center of Recreation Building, and then we can track all the expenses for each project. I think that's a great idea.
I think moving forward, actually, and I will discuss this with Mark, it's probably a good idea, even if it doesn't become a formal part of the application, for us to provide a history of funding to date and what's been accomplished. Because also, as I know, even before I came to the town, frequently money is given and then isn't expended or sits there, and those kinds of things happen. So absolutely, we will get that for you. Mark isn't coming back until next week. Of course, it's the 2 days before Christmas, but I will see what I can pull up. I don't have access to his computer if he has any of it stored specifically there. Poor Mark, feel bad for him. He's in Hawaii, but I know it's terrible. But we will get that to you, absolutely.
Well, as this is a letter of intent, you could spell these out as you're going forward in the full application back to the committee, and would be in January. So you'd have plenty of time to pull that together for these projects. I did notice there's some it appears to be woodpecker holes or something up in the top. You'll have to look. How would you replace those? By inserting some backing material and then looking to cover that over? I mean, that's going to be tricky. I took a good close look at them, and they are really built like a barrel.
Yeah, they
It's
are. They
pretty
truly
amazing.
are. They are exactly that. They're just giant barrels with staves. It's exactly the same construction. It's I hate to say it. It's a difficult problem to solve. Because sometimes you put copper plates or something on it, and it's used. They do it. Everyone thinks it's because it's infected with bugs. That's not necessarily the case, and some people think it's actually connected um, to electrical impulses or something they're finding in the columns. It certainly isn't the case. Most usually, it's for mating purposes. The problem is once they find a place they like, they keep revisiting it. I had this very thing happen on my home. I had a deck house, one corner covered in redwood, vertical tongue and groove redwood siding. Loved it. They loved it. It wasn't long. They were always back to visit it. So it's a good thing to. One of the things we haven't really discussed exactly whether we do these as replace them, because they would really have to be replaced as as wood, barrel stave construction, or whether we explore the idea of using a extruded kind of PVC material from like Chatsworth columns, which would probably not be as interesting to the birds, but we haven't really fully explored that. But you're right, it's a dilemma. It's hard to do. Often you patch the area, but they can move to a different one. They even have things in there really ugly where something drops and then it winds back up when they start, so it makes movement. It's a tough one. When they find a place they like, they keep revisiting it. So there's other than, I don't know. I can't really have an answer for it because they're persistent.
The only thing that I've found that works on my house is holographic tape.
Yeah, well, that spins, right?
It's just tape. I just stick it up with a thumbtack and it flutters in the breeze,
Flutters in the
and
breeze.
they
Yeah.
don't come. They don't come during mating season, which reminds me I probably should put fresh tape up because you have to replace it.
But we will address it as best we
All
can.
right.
Sometimes the solution is uglier than the problem, but yeah, we'll take care of it. The tape one is one. Yes.
Ugly as all can be, though, unfortunately.
Have you seen the ones that look like spiders that are on
No.
like a thing? They drop down and then they
No.
move their way back up. Yeah, they're solar powered. Yeah.
That'll look very appealing on 4 spiders.
At Halloween. At Halloween it'll
Look
work.
like Halloween. Okay. Any other questions on this
I
one?
have a question.
Yes.
Certainly, Catherine. Oh, yes, you have your hand up. Very nice.
So in the grand scheme of all of this, I think when you come back with a full application, what I'd like to compare how the Centerville Community Building is used compared to other Barnstable owned buildings that have like the same purpose. I'd be interested to see like what the town's overall plan is for each of these community buildings because they're so widely used. And what's, in terms of priorities, which building needs the most work in order to be, functioning at its best for the community.
So when you say overall plan, do you mean beyond it, if there's a grand kind of ultimate plan, or beyond its use as a resource for the community within each village to have? Do you think of it like a higher purpose or some ultimate permanent use beyond that as a community center?
No, I mean like in the town's eyes, I'm sure that there's like priority projects that they need to get done to keep these buildings functional,
Yes,
but
yes.
there's a variety of them. And so I'm wondering how
Okay.
this compares to the West Barnstable Community Center and how that compares to other public spaces
Absolutely.
that the town's maintaining.
Understood. Yeah, I can tell you that pretty much we move from building to building addressing issues as they come up. It's like the West Barnstable building. We got to a great place with these terrific windows. It works very well, but understood what you're looking for, and we'll address it.
Very good. Anyone else? Anyone have a motion that would move this?
I'll make a motion to move this into the application phase.
Second.
Moved and seconded to move the request of the Barnstable DPW for the Central Recreation Building project to application. Any other questions, discussions? Is there anyone out there from the public who would like to speak to this? Seeing none. Ellen, would you call the roll?
Terry Duenas,
Yes.
Deb Converse, Catherine Garofoli,
Yes.
Tom Lee,
Yes.
Farley Lewis,
yes,
Steve Robichaud,
Yes.
Lindsay Council.
Yes. Thank you.
And Deb is here too, if Deb can unmute herself.
Okay,
Deb, are you there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay. I abstained. I have some questions about how much we're spending on historic compared to housing.
Okay. Now we go to the next one. A letter of intent has been received from the Department of Public Works requesting $792,000 in community preservation funds for restoration of the West Barnstable Railroad Depot located at 2469 Meeting House Way, map 155, parcel 043. Proposed restoration work includes the removal and salvage of the existing clay tile roof, deteriorated roof sheathing, waterproofing, and reinstallation of the historic roof tiles, associated wood trim, repair, roof structural repair, window restoration, and interior water damage repair. Capital funds will be used for the design and installation of a mechanical system that will control indoor temperatures and humidity. This funding request represents a portion of the total estimated project cost of $978,000, with capital improvement plan funding in the amount of $186,000. The building is in the Old Kings Highway Historic District as well as the West Barnstable Historic District, and is listed as a contributed building in the National Historic District and the State Register as a cultural resource. Richard, you're on again.
Thank you. This Mark, is it Mark? I'm sorry, who's controlling it? Mike?
David would be.
David. What? I don't know where I come up with these names. I apologize. I might ask you to zoom in on some areas if you could, as I go through. So this is a building that was constructed in 1917, and it was built, as you see on those drawings. We have the original drawings, which is quite a thing to have in PDF form. It had two long wings that you can see that were open passenger platforms and integrally designed benches that were removed at one point in time. As is often the case with railroad stations, they're usually very broad eaves, very, very, very substantial cantilevered eaves, which this building has. You see there are posts on all four corners. They should not be there. They have been added over time as concerns and structures started to sag a bit, but they don't actually belong there. It should be free of those. And if you look at the top two west and east elevation drawings, you see what you're seeing are gutters, that angled little pieces, the gutter coming down and then going back to the building. But there are no posts on the corners. The posts you're seeing at the bottom, you still see that same cantilever on the bottom drawing on the far left and the far right. The post doesn't go to the corner, as you see on the building. So as I mentioned in the last project, water infiltration is the worst thing to happen to a building. Things go from it's leaking to bad to catastrophic very quickly. We are on the cusp of that with this building right now. So a little bit of history on it. This has been, I was hired by the town a little over 3 years ago. In August was 3 years. This was on my drawing board, as it were, from day one. There were some issues we had that you all may or may not know that I won't bore you with them regarding the legalities of how this building was transferred and whether it was owned by the town and all of that, that took some time to resolve. They have now been resolved, and now we can move forward with it. In that time, the building has suffered significant damage because of this water infiltration. These clay roof tiles are, believe it or not, the manufacturer of them is still in business 100 and nearly 10 years later. And the folks, the people that are dedicated to preserving this building, the volunteers that love it and are very involved with it and have kept it alive, have done their best. You can see in that photograph in the middle on the far right, to keep this building, and these are one of the repairs we've done at some point, to keep this building in the best condition it could be kept in. But it really has exceeded their ability to do it. And with the kind of fundraising they can have, it's impossible for them to do the work that needs to be done to protect it. The interior of this building is nearly pristine as it was. It's amazing. They even have, I mean, the men's room has the original urinal with this a flush switch that I have never seen before in all my years as a preservation architect. It is effectively untouched. And there were modifications made over time to the building, but it would be a terrible thing to have the interiors of this building damaged. So if I could, David, if you could zoom in on I guess, well, let's start in the far left bottom. Really zoom in on the far left bottom photograph, that one. These two. Thank you so much for your help. That's good. That's better. That's better. Zoom in on that bottom middle one. If you look at the edge of the roof, the eave condition, you can see what's happening here as it starts to sag and continues to sag, where the tiles are getting out of place. You can see that they're not even any longer. And if you look at the lower right one where it says West Barnstable, these posts that have been inserted in an effort to save the roof are now becoming pinch points. So anytime you insert a structural system that wasn't part of the original, it has its own problems. At first it can help, but as things move, it can actually exacerbate what's going on. So here you're seeing that this post and this angled piece that have been put in place to keep it from sagging have now managed to very well shore up the corner, but not what comes on either side of it. So we're starting to see the degradation caused by water getting into the building, and rot occurring that is really starting to become very problematic. It actually rather shocked me when we went out and took more photographs. So this building is an important building in the history of the railroad. It's important to the people that use it. It's very active in its use in the community. People buy tickets here to ride the dinner train, which is a big source of income. It does provide some income for the friends that maintain the station, and people who just want to come and see it. So we would very much we wanted to do it 3 years ago, and it was even on our rolls before I came in. And I don't know if you probably don't know me because Mark has done these presentations, but my history is one as a preservation architect. That's what I've been my whole career. So, and I also, was a kid who wanted trains at Christmas too. So I have a love of all things railroad, as many people do. It really is a very important project, and it's time finally, and they've been very patient at the station as well, to to fix these problems and get this roof restored. And also the other problems that are mentioned in the application, but most critically is the water infiltration problem. And I'll leave it at that, pending your questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions, members? Catherine?
I have a few.
Please.
So please correct me if I'm wrong. So this building is owned by the town, but a friends group maintains it. Is that correct? A volunteer group?
They lease it from the town for a really rather nominal fee, but they lease it and really are the stewards of it.
Okay.
But David Anthony is involved with that. They have a lease with them. Yes.
And so has there been any effort from their part to fundraise to help cover the expenses? Because this request is a large amount, and I can respect the fact that it's a historic building, but comparing it to the Centerville Community Building, that is a building that like sees a lot of use from people in our community. This seems a little bit, while it's historic, outside of the reasonable scope of asking this much from the CPC.
The Friends have done what they can, yes, and they get a portion of sales and tickets. But we have to keep in mind these are volunteers who many of them are up there in age, who do their part on the interior and do their part to keep the building occupied and make sure that vandalism doesn't happen. So they have, to the degree that they can, uh, done repairs and gotten up there on ladders and done that. But it is, a town building to that degree, and the work at this point has exceeded. It's not a matter of patching a hole at this point. It's a matter of the roof coming off, and repairing structure, and repairing sheathing, and putting a proper roof on it. So so I think honestly they've done the best they can, but it would be a mighty task to raise the funding as you see, because it's a good amount, to do what's necessary. It's not something that little jury-rigged repairs can any further satisfy. I would dare say we would be in a much different place years ago, in this place or worse, had it not been for what they've done so far. So they have, in fact, done their part, and have taken it to this place. But it's, for every step you take forward, you take two back, and now for every step you take forward, you take four back, because it's just now the water's coming in. Now it's a matter of trying to push the sea back. You really just can't do it. So in terms of its importance, I would dare say that while the community center buildings are great, this is a really kind of a one-off. Our trade station in the village of Hyannis is gone. This is a rare surviving example of this kind. Well, there's one very similar to it actually, just after you cross the main railroad bridge there in Bourne, that they just actually spent a good deal of money restoring. So I would say that, historically it has a great deal of importance, and it is also a source of revenue for the town of Hyannis, that uses this dinner train is very important. The train goes by here in the summer when people are coming from Boston, when they have, I can never remember the name of the train that they use, the Cape Flyer, is it? I think it's a really worthy project, and it's something that the public very much enjoys and uses. They might not hold meetings there, but this is a small interior, but it certainly has a prominent place. It would be a tragedy to lose it, particularly being the interiors are original. And if I have the drawings showing elevations of those interiors, and they are original to the building, with one exception, a door that was changed in the baggage area. Yes.
So I guess my next question is, will the town also submit grant applications for like the Massachusetts Preservation Project Fund, or like the Massachusetts Historic Rehabilitation Fund? Like I just
Well, Well, now, yeah, I know your question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, please. But I think I know exactly what you're asking. It's a good question. So let me
Go
get a
ahead.
little more into the legality of it, because that was the intent. So I'll have to get a little into the weeds with apologies, but I have to answer that question for you. That was always our intent. And part of us delaying was this legality issue. Who owns it? Forgive me, I can't remember the name. I'm sure you all know. What's the name of the trust that owns all this land for the poor?
Cobb, Cobb,
Cobb
Cobb
Trust.
Trust.
The Cobb Trust. And there's a judge that runs this trust.
Right.
So I'll just tell you. So some years ago, 15, 20, I forget how, the town paid, I think the sum of $35,000 for this building, transferred to the town. The trust didn't want it. The trust still doesn't want it. However, our town solicitor, who's recently retired, again, whose name I cannot recall, and with apologies, was adamant at the time, and he's no longer there, that we didn't actually own it, that it couldn't be sold out of the trust. It went on and on. And we had to go back and forth on it. Finally, the judge who runs the trust was like, I don't want it. Take it, please. It's yours. Ultimately, what was done to resolve this problem that some of us thought was a problem, others did not, was that we have now a 99-year lease for the building. So the town has a 99, so a century that we can protect this building long after all of us are gone. And in the time, maybe they can work out the legalities of that. But the problem is with the state is that there must be clear title. We do hope as we move forward, and if this project is approved, that we will, for the next go round, if there is a next go round with it, that we will be able to make the argument that, listen, we can guarantee this building is preserved and protected for at least a century. And again, the trust very much does not want it as their building. They don't want to be responsible for it, and they don't want it. And we have been running it all these years. So it's a bit confusing, but and this poor building has been kind of caught in between all of it. So that's as clear as mud, but that's the answer I can give you for it. So, but a century's preservation of a building and our ability to maintain it is certainly worthwhile.
Okay, is that it, Catherine?
So I just want to reiterate what you just shared. I do respect the fact that this is a historic building, but the town of Barnstable has a 99-year lease. And what year are we in now?
One, we're in day 30.
Great. So, and the title to this is questionable. And
that gets into a legality that I really can't address because, again, we paid for the building, but our prior town solicitor said that we didn't own the building, and we have an owner of the building who has been adamant in writing that they do not want the building. So for all intents and purposes, we are the owner of this building and responsible for it because they want nothing to do with it. But so I don't know what the legality of it. I think it needs still some more work, but we know that we are the caretakers of it for another century. That is definitive. It is now our building for 100 years. And that's a long time in the life of a building that is 100 years old.
Thank you.
Thank
Deb, you have a question?
Well, just a comment. I've always loved this project because I remember when it was first talked about, and we should have done something then. I think we get hung up on the legalities and all that, which is very discouraging. But I do think, I'm not sure that century ownership will sell to the state. So I'd be concerned about that. But why can't they deed it over to us? other than the judge doesn't want to? Or
No,
there's
no.
some-
Oh, no. The judge wants to. The judge has been exceedingly specific about this. It was our prior attorney at the town who was saying, "Oh, he can't do that." Um, which you know, which was vexing to us all. But but that we now have a new solicitor in this, and hopefully we can. It is our fervent wish to clear this up. But what we didn't want to do was wait any longer until that. I do believe, we do believe that we will be able to get this resolved in the way that the trust wants and that we want, which is that we own it outright, and then we can go to the state. I still hope that maybe we even do go to the state and say, listen, we give us the money. We have it for a century. It's only a century old. We have a century so please help us. But that's the honest truth about it. But again, the tragedy is that even in these last 3+ years, this building has continued to degrade as we discussed this legality. So it's really a tragedy, and it just becomes more costly. So that's the other. With each time we wait, if we wait another year, let's wait another year before we fund it. Maybe you'll get the state to give you money, and then it will cost whatever percentage more, and some serious irreversible damage may be done.
Okay, well, we're clear on that part of it. So
and Lindsay, can I just finish?
Sure, certainly.
So what you would do is restore the small building and add on the wings to make it historically accurate?
Well, the main station would be restored. Would we love to see those extended wings restored at some point? Sure, we would, but it's still accurate. They were removed. Buildings change over time, so it is not inaccurate to not have them on the building. They were removed decades ago. I can't tell you when, but I think by the 50s they were gone. Would it be ideal to have it back? Yes. Is it necessary for the building to be considered important or have historic significance? No. I suspect that would be a project for which some serious fundraising would have to happen. But as preservation, success breeds success. So I think once this building comes back, to looking right, perhaps people will be more willing to help, and perhaps we'll get some money from the state.
You are correct about the serious fundraising for the wings, which has already been determined by our previous legal department that community preservation funds couldn't be used to recreate something. They have to be used to restore.
So there it is. It would have to be, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it is
Any other members with questions? Deb, are you done?
No.
Okay.
And could the bill? I mean, I really love trains too, and I love this whole station and that. So, that's why I'm interested in this. And it's fun seeing it restored. So it'd be kind of an educational lesson for all of us. Because when I was in Falmouth, we did that to a building in Woods Hole, and it was so fascinating. But is there any plan for the building after it's restored? I mean, could there be like artifacts from old railroads, or does a volunteer group have any kind of something so the building wouldn't be just sitting there as a building, an empty building?
Well, here's the reality. It is that already. It is, in fact, it is filled. It is filled with objects. They have a museum in what was the baggage room, and there's a great deal of history in it. There's a great deal of objects related to the railroad, related to the building itself. It is open. The museum is routinely open for visitors. It's open to buy tickets for the trains. All of those things are well in place there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Steven? Yeah, just real quick, I just want to say I think you're doing a great job, but just one, it is a long agenda tonight. If you are able to be a little more quicker and conciser with responses, that's going to be helpful to
Oh, I'm
all of us.
sorry if I'm giving too much
No, no,
detail.
no. Again, doing a great job, but just a small note. My
Sure.
only question, real quick question, is just obviously, returning the clay tiles to the roof has to be a labor-intensive process. Was there a discussion or an option to simply use a new tile roof? And again, I'm not an expert with historic preservation, and that may offend people who are experts at historic preservation, but I know how labor intensive that must be, and that's a big number. Like Catherine said, that's a big number. So I was just curious. I just wanted to ask that one thing.
No, it's a good question. No offense taken. You want to use original materials if you can, and being that we would never consider replacing it with like a shingled roof or asphalt shingle, they all have to come off anyway. So we would salvage those that are salvageable and replace those that are irreparable with new ones. But to replace it with any other kind of roof would, quite frankly, be inappropriate and, dare I say, um, not something that would be considered preservation.
I agree with you on that for sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Terry?
I just have a real quick comment. Absolutely, my colleagues are right. It is a very large ask, but we are committed to historical preservation. We also are committed to repairing the envelope of a building that's leaking water. That's probably the will trump everything else. Since day one, we've been committed to that, and I think that that's really something we have to look at in this building.
Good point. Anyone else? Seeing none, any member from the public would like to speak to this request?
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yep,
I don't-
please
I don't think-
identify yourself.
Marie Rizzo.
Yes.
I don't think my camera's working. Just a quick question. You're talking about the legality, and my question is, right now you have a 99-year lease and you're pursuing something that sounds like change of ownership. And my question is, what is the plan for that? Or, what's your plan as far as resolving the legal issue? Thank you.
You're welcome. I can't really speak to it beyond what I already have because I don't understand when it gets into this kind of legality exactly how it will be resolved. All I can answer to you is that the town has been acting as the owner for these many years. The trust and the judge who runs the trust would very much like to see this off of their rolls. So I think whatever can be done to permanently make that happen and give it to the town will be, what particular sentence or has to be reviewed in the trust documents is beyond, it's out of my wheelhouse. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific.
Well, perhaps you could include a statement from the legal department as to the path going forward on that when if this is moved forward to application.
Understood.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, any member have a motion regarding this project? This would be a motion to move it to full application. And we could get breakouts on the individual cost of individual items, which we should have for all projects. It'd be interesting to see what that tile roof.
I'll
Make
make a
that
motion,
motion,
Lindsay.
Terry?
Yes, please, that we move this West Barnstable Railroad Depot project to full application.
Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Tom Lee. Ellen, would you call the roll?
Harry Duenas,
Yes.
Deb Converse,
You muted,
Deb?
Deb. You muted, Deb.
I know. This is I've been fading in and out. Anyway, this flies in the face of what I said about Centerville music or the community building, but I say yes to this.
Thank you.
Catherine Garofoli,
No.
Tom Lee,
Yes.
Barley Lewis,
Yes.
Steve Robichaud,
Yes.
Lindsay Council.
Yes. Okay, that
Thank you.
one's moved to application.
Lindsay, can I
Yes.
make a comment before you move on?
Yes, you may.
Richard, in the applications, when you are doing the application phase, can you get a legal opinion from our town legal and versus the trust whether they would settle this ownership issues when moving forward after we are awarding this fund?
Yes, I will put in that. I will get that request and oh, yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Okay. And the third letter of intent. A letter of intent has been received from the Department of Public Works requesting $371,775 in community preservation funds for restoration work to the old jail building located at 3353
I'll put the
Main
water
Street,
in that.
Barnstable, map 299, parcel 046. Proposed work will address structural concerns identified in the CBI Consulting Building Study, as well as accessibility, exterior building and site elements, and required design work. The funding represents a portion of the total estimated project cost of $485,525, with capital improvement plan funding in the amount of $113,750. The building was built in 1690 and holds significant historic value as one of the oldest wooden jails in Massachusetts and is tied to many notable historic events. The building is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is in the Old Kings Highway Historic District. Richard?
Yes, all right. David.
Hey, I don't have that slide in the PowerPoint that was presented. Do you have that on you, or do you have that available?
Hold on a moment. Sorry about that. Apologize to you all. Just give me one moment. I'm looking for you folks. I'm sorry, and your time is so valuable. I do apologize for this.
Well, we can move on to the next one. We can take that up at another time.
Why don't we move on to the next one? I'm not pulling it up, and I don't want to waste your time.
Okay, we'll bring that up at a later date. The fourth letter of intent. A letter of intent has been received from the Department of Public Works requesting $496,775 in community preservation funds for the restoration of the Marston's Mills Airfield Hangar located at 1000 Race Lane, Marston's Mills, map 104, parcel 00-T00. Proposed restoration work will focus on addressing the building's structural integrity and restoring damaged exterior components to ensure its continued functionality while safeguarding its historic significance. This funding request represents a portion of the total estimated project cost of $566,588, with capital improvement plan funding in the amount of $52,280. The building was constructed in the early 1920s, and the airfield's history is deeply rooted in aviation and has been an integral part of the Cape Cod community for over a century and is listed on the state register as a cultural resource. You're on.
All right. So this hangar is now 100, believe it or not, 100 years old. And it's an early 20s structure. If it looks like one of those old mail planes with the corrugated siding, and a rare survivor of because with most airfields, both airports, these buildings would have been replaced with more modern facilities, but because of the nature of this airfield and its relatively limited use and not having grown as aviation grown and the needs of servicing planes grew, it just has survived, mostly because there was no need to really replace it. It was serving its purpose for the type of aircraft they use. So to that degree, it's very important because, again, most of these buildings just out of necessity were replaced with facilities that would work for the larger aircraft. So again, there are trusses. It's a steel truss system. It's really quite beautiful. It's hard to capture in photographs, but you see there what it is. Corrugated metal siding. It's very simple, and it has sliding doors. It's still used for its original purpose after a century, and this would allow us to restore it and bring it back. It has some water infiltration issues here. They're not as horrible given the nature of the structure, but you can see the rust that's occurring on it. And it's in fairly good condition, but we do need to make repairs to the columns and the trusses. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find a similar building in many airports anywhere.
Okay. Questions, members?
I have a question.
Certainly.
So, with the business that operates out of this facility, what is the agreement that the town has with them, and what is the opportunity that they could help support some of these costs? Because they're obviously getting a lot of income from their operations there, and it would be really helpful to know that they've also committed to contributing.
I would have to defer, of course, to David Anthony on this, and I'm sure he has those answers, but I don't believe he's with us tonight, and nor was he asked, I think, so it's not like he didn't show. But we can certainly address those in the application and get you answers in the interim, which I will act on immediately.
Excellent. Anyone else with questions on this one? Stephen?
Yeah, this piggybacks right up on that. I know it's important for all of us that, any of the, CPC money that's spent goes to a site that is open and accessible to the general public. And I think Catherine's point is valid. So, again, I have no problem moving this ahead to application. It is also a significant chunk of change, but I think it's going to go to good use. But again, it's important to all of us that the public has access to this, and we'd want to know all about that at the next application phase.
The only thing I would say, and I don't dare answer for David, is that as the landlord of the building, which is what we are, I guess I would look at you're right, we have to look at the agreement, but to what degree are they responsible for maintaining, the owner's apartment building? That, as it were, to use that analogy. And I will find the answers to that for you, but to the degree that the owner is responsible to make sure the windows, seal and the doors open and close and the roof doesn't leak, I don't know what they're expected to do, but I'm sure David, again, I'm sure he has the answers to it.
Great, thank you. Farley?
Yeah, I'm just curious, when all the work is finished on this, is it going to look just the way it does right now? I mean, it's not going to change its outward appearance at all, or?
Well, you don't think it's pretty.
Well, I mean,
No, I know it's attractive.
like a
It's fairly,
total wreck to me.
yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm not. It is a very it is a very mean building in that way. No, we would certainly be restoring that signage painting, but
Yeah.
it would, while absolutely fixed up a bit, it would very much look like it does now. But that left door, as you see, looks really beat up. We would be correcting those issues, making sure the doors work properly. Dealing with this is one of these situations where replacing corrugated metal siding with new metal siding that is really looks beat up would not be a bad thing to do because this is readily available. But it would overall look very much like that, but much, not quite so dented.
Anyone else? One thing I can say from my site visit out there is the building needs to be cleared of brush around the three other sides and
You're
drainage,
absolutely right.
positive drainage away. I don't think it was originally equipped with any gutters or anything, so you'd have to put in stone because that's where the water's coming in. It's coming in through the
Yes.
foundation there.
Ms. Lewis,
Anyone else?
you're right. I just want to make sure you understand me. No, it looks beat up for sure, but
Yes.
it will be very stark. It is a stark by its very nature. It's a very stark building.
And we've been aware that this has been coming. It was in this kind of shape when we acquired the airfield as a land bank purchase. So this has been a long time. This has been on the list for a while, as the railroad station and others. Tom,
Lindsay, I got two questions. Number one,
go for it.
is it possible to do a site visits before the application coming in, the full application coming in?
You could certainly do a site visit at any time. If you want to have a group site visit, we could do that, or merely.
Mr. Lee, I'm at your disposal whenever you'd like to see any of you. I would be, and I know Mark feels the same, would be more than happy to show you the buildings.
Because the this airfield is close to my house. It's not that far, so it's like easy to go and look at it. Second question, Richard, with the 4 applications, even though the third one you didn't get a chance to bring it up, but it's about $2 million. And I'm wondering, in the application phase, is it possible to provide a proposed design schedule or something like that so that you have enough manpower to overseeing those 4 projects?
I'm certain we can do that, yes.
You know what I'm looking for, right?
Yes, I do.
Do you have enough manpower to manage all that money, 4 projects at the same time?
Absolutely. There would be, we would probably, I think we would probably try to keep the railroad station in-house because of my abilities. I think something like this project, we do have sub-consultant architects that the town uses for projects that we heavily oversee on all of our projects, especially these types of projects where we keep a very, very strong design foot in it, but effectively use their staff to do the design, actual drawing of it. But we will provide you that absolutely.
Yeah. So if you want to just say, you're using a contractor to kind of design and manage some of this stuff, some of you are done by the in-house staff. So I just want to make sure that you have enough people to manage it.
Absolutely. It's a good point, and it's something we are, very much want to make sure they move forward in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb, go ahead.
Well, I want to sort of tag on to what Tom said, because I'm concerned with spending all this money with some unanswered questions, not just on this project, but all the historic projects coming at us all at once. And it's not balanced to me. It's just too much. And so it's the oversight. It's what it's going to look like. There's a lot of questions. And I think my opinion is rather than move this one on to application, that we maybe hold it until we get a few more answers about what Tom brought up. But just me.
I would say we have several design architect sub-consultants that the town uses because there's only so much work that we can, handle ourselves in terms of production. So
Yeah.
we're running many projects as well. And we, in fact, just got applications for extending that contract and for new sub-consultants. So I'm confident that we have the resources to do this. We're doing far more complex projects using our
Mhm.
sub-consultants that involve mechanical, electrical, plumbing, lots of engineering
Yeah.
components that these buildings don't have that we are able to manage. So I would assure you that we can handle, but I understand your concern.
I have been very impressed with the town employees that do this, like yourself and some other people. So I'm sure you could handle it. I guess I'm reacting to this full on, and it has nothing to do with you, but this full on town ask for these historic projects, very little match involved. And I have a concern about other things that have to happen. And we have a big land project coming up, which I totally support, but it's just like it's very imbalanced for me. And that's why I mentioned earlier about how much are we giving to housing? Because that's my role on this committee. And we're spending the highest proportion of our money on historic, which I totally agree with, and a lot of money on land preservation. And there's not a balance there with the three. And there's supposed to be a little bit of a balance. And I just feel like it's not right now. So it's not your fault, Richard. It's just
Yes,
how I'm.
no, I understand and respect your opinion.
Okay, Terry. You're muted, Terry. Terry, you're muted. Can you hear me? There you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And these big projects that we have, what is the formula that you folks use in determining what percentage of in the capital improvement plan? Because they vary. Some are 10% of the big ask or the big project. Some are up as high as 20. But how do you determine how much of the capital plan is used in these projects?
Mr. Drenas, I've got to tell you, I can't really speak to that in a way that would make me comfortable. I would much rather, and I'm sorry Mark isn't here at this point, in terms of the formula that he uses. I didn't anticipate that, nor did I ask him for it. So I can get you an answer to that question, certainly, but I would really be somewhat guessing.
That's all right.
So
It's something
I'm
we can
sorry
look
I
at.
can't answer it,
Mhm.
but I will get you that answer.
Catherine? Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Catherine had her hand
So
up. Yeah.
I would also really like to see the town approaching other funding opportunities, whether it's mass historic or even a federal request. I'm not 100% comfortable with all of this coming from CPC. And to be honest with you,
Yeah.
and Deb, I hear what you're saying, but we're only so limited to the applications that we get. So if we're not getting housing
Oh,
applications,
yeah.
what are we supposed to do? But when people come to us with land preservation projects, they're also going up for state funding and looking for fundraising
I know.
opportunities. And I feel like we need to hold that standard here too.
Thank you. Any other question from members? I will say, if you saw our report on our general expenses during our annual meeting, it was surprisingly very split, fairly evenly
Fine.
between the three, with the expenses that the Housing Trust has had. So it's been roughly about 8 million for each category. And housing brings in a pretty good match when they get something going. So, it is a lot about what other funding resources. But with this slug of backlogged historic preservation requests on town buildings, many of these have been hanging around for a while, and for some reason they're all coming now. So I think the point of sticking to the exterior envelope perhaps, and those kinds of things might help guide us through this. Is there someone else with a hand up? Did I see Steve? No, that was nothing. All right, anyone from the public here, David, to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, nobody. Okay. Again, what are your thoughts, members? Do you want to see a full application? Doesn't commit us to effort application. It gives them another chance to make their case, really. And we should get a breakdown budget. That's really what's needed on a lot of these. You know, what's the money for the various aspects of a project like this? And then the questions we had were a couple of questions for our legal department on the Lombard Trust and the West Barnstable Railroad Station. And then this one also has some questions for property management as to what the operators of these facilities could contribute. And then a general question to, I'm not sure whom, on what the possibilities are for some of these grants. We certainly have a large number of historic buildings, and I don't recall very many grants coming in for those, for town buildings. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be through the town manager and the grant writing staff that's with the, I believe, planning department. So is there a motion? Move this to application.
I'll make the motions to move this to full applications.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members, on this? Seeing none, Ellen, would you call the roll?
Terry Duenas,
Yes.
Deb Converse. Deb?
Not really.
Not really isn't one of the categories.
I know that. I know that. But I'm trying.
Yes,
I
Deb,
don't
I
want it
love
to seem
it.
like.
Can we do half votes?
Oh, that would do. I'll 0.5. I like this project. I like all the historic projects, but again, it's a balance that I want out of this. So I guess abstaining is the only thing I can do.
All right.
Catherine Garofoli.
Yes,
Catherine?
I'll be interested to see the full application.
Okay. Tom Lee. Tom Lee?
Just 1 minute.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Farley Lewis?
Yes.
Steve Robichaud?
Yes.
Lindsay Council?
Yes.
Carries.
All right, that carries.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you probably at the next meeting, I would imagine, Richard.
Yes, and I do apologize that the wrong slide was inserted for the jail project. I'm sorry about that.
No problem at all.
That's fine.
All right,
Lindsay,
thank you.
I have-
Thank you all. And I'm sorry if I was a little too verbose. I apologize for that as well.
It's quite all right.
It was interesting.
Catherine, you're scheduled to depart us.
Yeah, I have to go.
All right.
Thank
you
you
very
all.
Have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Dave.
you.
Bye now.
Come back.
Okay. Now we move to applications. An application has been received from the Barnstable Land Trust requesting $1,350,000 in community preservation funds in support of the appraised fair market value acquisition of the property located at 30 and 31 Crockers Neck Road, map 020, parcel 093001 and 097, totaling 10.62 acres, with the remaining 50% of the acquisition cost, plus project costs being raised through PLT's private fundraising. This open space project will be eligible for a state park grant for the town to purchase a conservation restriction in the amount of $500,000, which would partially reimburse the CPA funding. The purchase of the property by BLT will protect the property from development and will preserve the scenic, open space, and recreation values of the property for public access and use by the community. Barnstable Land Trust will grant a perpetual conservation restriction to the town of Barnstable on the property. And I believe we have Janet Milkman here to present this project.
Good evening, everyone. I also wanted to say that Kelly Grant is here with me. She is our land protection specialist and works for the compact. So she will step in on any technical issues. And David, I wonder if I could have the slides, or you can show them or I can show them, whatever works.
You're all set to show them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you saw this before, and I'll go through these quickly. I'm doing this more for the public because I know you've seen these. This just shows the project locus. Existing open space, the parcels we're talking about are in red in the center, and the existing open space is in yellow, and some of that is golf course land, but also so public and private open space in purple. This just shows the marine water recharge areas. A couple of slides that you've seen multiple times and are in the application, but reflecting the community value of this property, how it's used as a golf course, a clubhouse, sledding hill, etc. And just showing you a little bit of the scenic value of the property. Again, this is the property outlined in red. Now you can see it in the neighborhood. It's really the only large open space in this neighborhood. And this visual just shows you, we've added a dotted line here, which depending on what your feedback is, we have thought it best to exclude the clubhouse lot from the CR for a couple of reasons, which I'll get to later, but we don't have to do that. It simplifies things a little bit, particularly if the town chooses to apply for a park grant. But you'll see it's partially wooded. It's a active golf course. It is a parcel with a development potential of 4 lots, and then another lot on the existing parking lot, which is the single lot to the right there. The clubhouse is in the corner there, so sort of the northeast corner. There's a wetland with a Atlantic white cedar swamp. That's labeled as well. And I think, yeah, that was the last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And as we outlined in the application, the Katuitt High Ground Golf Club is a very popular recreation spot, local gathering spot, includes a 9.6 acre golf course with a clubhouse and an old 1800s farmhouse, and then 1 acre parcel across the street that provides parking. We have reached agreement with the Hare family for the purchase of the property with a 5-year lease back for golf use, and the potential for renewing that lease. Proposed longer-term uses of the property include golf, walking trails, park, playground, picnic area, potentially nature center / community gathering space. It is really important. It's a little bit different. I think I said this when I was here for the letter of intent, that it is a little bit of a different project than Barnstable Land Trust is used to protecting, but equally important because in addition to wetland, water quality, wildlife habitat, values, it's also a very important community recreation spot. Conserving this land would protect it from development, would preserve a really important community gem and protect the essential character of this part of the village, protect the nutrient impacted Shoestring Bay, particularly once it's no longer a golf course, protect the drinking water supply, protect a wetland and the border to the wetland, preserve the forested areas, and protect public access to the property. It would leverage private funding and potentially state funding, and produce a strong cost benefit for the town. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the park grant to be transparent about the strings that come along with it, even though your decision doesn't have to be dependent on whether the town decides to apply for a park grant, of course. Park grant is a little bit different than some of the other state grants. The land grant is the one that we've applied for or the town has applied for most recently for these kinds of projects. The park grant would require that were the golf course lease to be renewed after 5 years, that the town hold that lease, publicly bid it. And the reason that we have carved off the clubhouse lot is that were it part of the town CR, the town would also have to deal with whatever the business happens in that, like if it was a restaurant license or a bar like it currently is. So it just complicates things. It would also require ADA accessibility for the parking, which could be dealt with. That's not, I think, a threshold issue, but just something for the town to consider when deciding whether to pursue the park grant or not. The CR, the conservation restriction has been drafted, but we're just waiting for feedback from this committee to share it with the town attorney. So Kelly, have I missed anything important?
No, I think you got it covered there.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Question from members? I have a couple of comments. One, I think we had already emailed to you, Janet, that we need to do a 21E site survey, which I've walked the property a couple of times, and it's about as clean a property as you're going to see, given it's a golf course. But I think we want to cover that base before we go to town council on that.
We
were
can
fortunate
commit to
that,
doing that.
yeah, we were fortunate that what the operator does is, the family does is contract out to a private licensed applicant, and they take care of all that. So it's not done in-house. And I don't believe there's much, if anything, stored on site. So that should be fine. The one thing I think we're going to need to do too is a survey of the perimeter so that we know going forward. I mean, there's white stakes that are out of bounds, but I'm not sure that that's on the property line. And also in the survey, the way that lot is displayed that you just showed, Janet, that particular layout would cause problems in that if there were to be a playground, it consumes the only flat other piece in the property. So we're going to have to look at where that would actually be actually subdivided. And that brings me to this park grant and the last statement you made, because I think we really need to spell out the management agreement as an addendum to to the draft CR as to how this is all going to transpire. The 5-year lease, the BLT can manage that. If it's going to at all conflict for the park grant, then now that's another whole thing that we'd want to look at. And so I think this application needs a little more work. I'd perhaps approve it a contingent on these things being provided, but and there's also the possibility too, if it doesn't go to golf, maybe at that point the land trust would want to have some other more active recreation than a golf course, but something else. I thought perhaps maybe a playground with perhaps like a life course where people could come and do exercise courts or something. Or if that's not the case and it's totally golf is given up, what's the plan to restore it? Right now the whole property is sprinkled. It has irrigation. There could be some pretty interesting grant opportunities to restore it in certain ways. So I think all that should be at least outlined with the option of revisiting it in 5 years and then going forward. Because this is going to be...
Absolutely, and I think the CR will allow for all of those things.
Right.
I don't want to predetermine that it ends being a golf course after 5 years.
Right.
And as long as the CR allows for those things, I think we're covered. And we have begun looking for someone to do a survey, and have someone lined up to do a 21E. So we will do both of those in short order.
All right. Well, I think we want to really look at the management agreement because that's really a more active document. Once the CR is recorded, it can allow for certain things, but we're going to need this 5-year management plan. And I think that will help you in fundraising and other things when it's clearly stated, these are the things we're going to look at. This is where it's going to go over this time period. And it'll give the town manager time because this is all going to go to property management. And that conversation is separate from this committee or even the town council. It has to be held with the manager. So I want to just make sure there's ample opportunity for that to be discussed. And that would probably occur between the time of when this moves from this committee to it actually going to the council.
Yeah, and I think that would also give you an opportunity to really consider if you want to go for the park grant. You may
Correct.
decide it's not worth it. But that's it's a good way to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's an internal discussion. So that's the options that I see playing out. Anything from members? Terry?
I just have one. What is a park grant again? I kept thinking it was park, PARK, but it's not. What is it?
It's a PARC is the acronym. It's a state grant for Kelly. Kelly can probably answer this.
It's for acquisition and improvements on properties that are used for more like active recreation rather than a land grant, which is used more for conservation purposes.
Good.
So it's very similar to the land grant, but the use is different. It allows for playgrounds and playing fields and things like that.
Right. Thank you.
And it's a very interesting point, Janet, that would then have to be publicly bid through the town. That may be something that they go, oh, wait a minute, So that will require more discussion. Anyone else? Deb,
It's
do I
just,
see your hand waving?
isn't,
Yeah.
is it time is of the essence though with this, or is the BLT okay? Time is of the essence?
Time is of the essence. I mean, I think we certainly have time, if this committee approves it, to have a discussion with the town. I think the park grant is due in July.
In July.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so there's time.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking,
Okay.
we don't want to be discussing this to death and have time go by and like the train station and nothing happens. That's really frustrating me these days. So if this can meet with your schedule for closing and for park grant or whatever, I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, the park grant, even if the town decides to apply for it,
Right.
is not guaranteed that it will
Mhm.
be awarded.
Mhm.
So,
So that doesn't matter, that part.
right, we have to move forward, and we will certainly start our own fundraising, private fundraising immediately, which will be enormously helped by a commitment of the town if that
Mhm.
happens.
And I,
But with the park grant, we can award the funds and you can have the acquisition, we can still apply for park funds. This, it doesn't preclude us, or does that timing have to weigh in there?
So to apply for the park grant, part of that would be that
ownership.
showing the town's commitment to
Mhm.
dedicating the funds through CPA for the project.
Okay.
Okay, and then if we get them, we get them. If we don't, we don't.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I look forward to entrepreneurial activities going on there with the BLT. That's your new arm of the BLT.
Thank you. I'll look for your advice on that.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? All right, anyone here from the public, David, to speak to this?
Lindsay, do you mind if I just ask a question?
Certainly.
Just to clarify your comment with regard to management over the next 5 years. Are you kind of speaking in terms of the town's role there or understanding how BLT will manage the property? Because, obviously BLT would be the owner of the property. The town's responsibility as a CR holder would be to monitor the property in terms of it maintaining those conservation values under the conservation restriction. So are you just trying to get a better understanding of the way that BLT would be managing the property in terms of the golf use?
Yes, because it's a golf course, things are going to be applied there.
Right.
This
Okay.
site is a huge contributor to Shoestring Bay, 7% of the load. So when applications are going to be
Okay. So in
organic,
terms
I
of,
believe you're
all
going to
right.
ask that it's returned to organic, or not returned to, starting organic. What's the chain of command, those kinds of things, because that's what they're going to ask us.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have those answers. So it'd be better to spell them out in a operating agreement for years 1 through 5, and then the decision point will come to the land trust if they want to continue golf. And then if we've gotten park funds, that'll be one way that it has to go. And if we haven't, it'll be another. So we need to spell all of that out. Then we've talked about a playground. So we'll need to actually, I think we need to identify that area early on. And I think it's going to be due south of the clubhouse, because that's about the only flat place on the property. And it's also close to the parking area. So, those are the kind of things we need to look at so that everyone's squared away up front. This is the deal. This is the area. And this is the reserved area. I think we won't know until we get the park grant. I guess if we subdivide, when would that occur? Um, so, and then the shape
We
of
don't,
that lot
yeah, we don't have to subdivide. We're
until,
just,
You
we're
wouldn't need to
just,
subdivide, and if we're just excluding that area from the conservation restriction, we don't need to subdivide to exclude it. We can just subdivide. We can just exclude it via a sketch plan,
Right.
or a survey.
right. But if you're going to keep it as a golf course and operate the entire property as a one entity, you're not going to want to subdivide.
No,
So
wouldn't.
when
Yeah, the
does
plan
that
is
subdivision occur?
we're not intending to subdivide it. We're just intending to exclude through a sketch that
Mm.
portion of the land that the clubhouse is on. So
So
you
is
don't
that
need
going
to
to,
subdivide it in order to exclude a portion of the property from a conservation restriction. You
right,
just,
but is that going to cause any problems if that's excluded in a CR with the park grant?
yes. So that's one of the complications of the park grant is that if you get the park grant and then the town has to bid out the lease, you then have a lease on the golf course itself, and you have a lease on the building, the clubhouse building, which are kind of going to end up being two different things if that clubhouse is not included in the conservation restriction. So that's one of the issues related to the park grant.
All right, so this is the kind of stuff that all has to be spelled out. So we can't move it to council unless it's all spelled out. So
Right.
get your thinking caps on, and you guys are the experts on it. We'll come up with the two scenarios.
Good.
All right. Anything else from members? We have no one from the public, I believe, right, David?
That'd be correct.
All right. Does anyone have a motion? I'll make a motion to move this, to approve the funding for the acquisition of the Katuitt High Grounds Golf Course for acquisition, pending the other information we just discussed.
Second.
Is there a second?
A second.
Tom Lee seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ellen, would you call the roll? You're muted, Ellen.
Sorry about that. Harry Duenas,
Yes.
Deb Converse,
Yes.
Tom Lee,
Yes.
Barley Lewis,
Yes.
Steve Robichaud,
Yes.
Lindsay Council.
Yes.
Motion
All right. Thank you
carries.
very much.
Thank you
We'll
so
look forward
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we move on to correspondence received. We had an email from the Planning and Development Department regarding future housing discussions by the Planning Board and links to recent reports about multifamily housing. So that's available on the Planning Board. It talks about the draft community housing production plan, and also on there is some links through the local comprehensive planning committee. So there's lots of information. And it's my understanding that the trust is going to come in and ask for another influx of funds for our purposes. So I'm looking forward to seeing them to reinstate some funds with them. An inquiry was received regarding the West Barnstable Village Store for historic preservation funds. That was the for-profit store that's the West Barnstable Village Store. We don't really have a policy on private entities applying for funds that are business operated. We've generally in the past not done that. I think we've only had one or two inquiries. So we may want to look at that.
The housing that they did on refurb or rehabilitation on Pleasant Street, I think they came in to request, or one of the owners of the houses came in to get a historic request, and we didn't do it because of the
Okay, yeah, and I think
owner.
there was, I can't remember, I think it might have been an inquiry from the Barnstable Village Store. They wanted to do their building, and we declined it. As we have declined private homes. The public access part of that is questionable too. So anyway, just an inquiry. We received an inquiry from the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School superintendent about open space and recreation funds. They want to develop a park next to the school over there. It's Cranberry Bogs, and they want to build trails. And we are allowed to spend money in other towns. We've done that before, but we required a recreation restriction, and recreation restrictions are, one of the things that are allowed. Unfortunately, they don't run in perpetuity. They only run for the life of the trail or equipment that you're. And they had responded, I believe, to Ellen that they were not inclined to grant any restriction. So I don't believe the school owns the land. I believe it's the town of Howard. So anyway, that was just an inquiry. And we received an inquiry from the South Congregational Church about historic preservation funds for cemetery restoration. We referred that to legal to see if that would be just on the land or if we would need to get some other restriction. They want to just restore headstones, but we would need to do, I think, what they did in Hyannis is get an evaluation of these stones in the graveyard before we start allocating funding. So it would be like restoring a historic structure. You got to have the baseline report before you go ahead and do things. So anyway, that's the mail. Project updates, Oakmont Road, Comaquid. We did make an offer. Marie, you're still here?
Yeah,
You
I'm
wanna-
still here. Yeah, my camera still doesn't want to work. I
That's quite
apologize
all
for
right.
that. And all right, so I have been in contact with the abutters, and there's been surveys done, and there are questions that they have. Unfortunately, the people involved have been away on vacation, so I'm waiting. Well, I've heard back from them, but they're going to move forward with trying to get some of those questions answered. So that's where we stand.
Okay, well, the property hasn't sold then, as far as we know.
Nope, I believe it has not. And going back to, I believe it was the Lombard Trust, this also would probably have to go to probate to have the sale go through. So we'll see what happens between now and January.
Very good. All right. I think I've already mentioned the Mass DOT did award the Cape Cod Rail Trail Phase 3 work. And I have not got a firm date on when that start is. They're looking at spring of 2025. But the application for open space and recreation plan consultant that we approved has been referred to the town manager for placement at town council, as has the Federated Church Universal Cemetery Project, which has gone to the town manager. And we received letters of support for the open space and conservation committees, open space committee and conservation commission for the Smiths Creek conservation restriction, and the project will be referred to the town manager. Stephen, you were going to give us a brief update on where you guys were at with housing?
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, obviously it's after 7 p.m., so I thought maybe I could just touch on this briefly, and then if everyone agreed, we could just keep it on there for further discussion at our January meeting.
Sure.
Essentially the housing production plan is something that Elizabeth Jenkins worked on extensively, put a lot of hard work into it, and it's a huge document. I think it's over 260 pages long. So the planning department was nice enough to put together a 4-page snapshot, which was sent out to everybody by Ellen. Personally, I love the snapshot because it just kind of gives an overview of everything, and it organizes it in a really easy way to digest. And then the part that I love about it is pages 3 and 4 list specific strategies, which I thought was phenomenal. It's very thorough, very comprehensive, and it covers a lot of ground. So this was referred to the planning board. Obviously, every town, should have a housing production plan. It's just a unified plan of attack and strategy for the entire town because there's so many different entities that deal with housing. We met multiple times on this. We heard from the public, and we had some great lively discussions among members. We have universal support for this plan from the planning board. Our motion at the planning board was unanimous. And what we did is instead of just recommending approval of the town's draft housing production plan, we went a step further and included 6 specific strategies that we wished to highlight. And I'll go ahead and read those now. And this, again, was included in the letter dated December 6, 2024, addressed to President Penn. And again, I'll just quickly read through these 6 areas that we figured we thought were worthy of priority. Number 1, pursue the extension of Barnstable's residential property tax exemption to Barnstable property owners that provide year-round rentals to income-eligible tenants. Consider opportunities to use this incentive to strengthen the accessory affordable apartment program. So essentially, for people who are renting year-round rather than short-term rentals, seasonal rentals, year-round rentals to income-eligible tenants to try and incentivize them further. Number two is support village scale mixed use and multi-unit development and redevelopment consistent with the local comprehensive plan by implementing community supported planning initiatives and zoning amendments and studying what design, scale, and type of housing may be appropriate in other commercial corridors and pedestrian oriented village centers. There's been a big focus in the downtown Hyannis area. This priority was simply to shed some light on smaller village scale housing, mixed use, multi-use type development. Number three was to identify zoning amendments and other strategies to support the missing middle and living little forms of housing, such as allowing single-family home conversions, duplexes, cottage clusters, townhouses, tiny homes, and infill design consistent with locations identified as suitable in the LCP. There's an example is the 40Y, which talks about smaller lot sizes and smaller homes. That missing middle is a big deal, I think, here on the Cape, and it's going to become an even bigger deal going forward. Number four, consider regulations and other policies focused on short-term rentals to the extent they impact year-round affordable housing, such as Nantucket's initiative to ban corporate ownership of short-term rentals. This isn't, very simple and as cut and dry as it sounds, but of course, my gut reaction is that all corporate-owned short-term rentals should be banned in the town of Barnstable, and I think that should happen tomorrow. But I understand that it's not quite that simple. But Nantucket and the state of New York have both taken a lead on that and do have effective policies in place. So the thought was for us to study those and follow their lead. Number five, closely coordinate implementation of the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan and housing planning to address both natural resource protection and housing needs and continue to support upgrades to wastewater infrastructure in the downtown Hyannis growth incentive zone. So, areas that are being focused on by the CWMP, those are good areas to also focus housing improvements because then it will have a negative impact on the environment. And number six, explore public-private partnerships with the town's largest employers and opportunities internally with the Barnstable Public Schools to create workforce and seasonal housing for employees and students. Everyone on the planning board was pretty adamant about the fact that we need more workforce housing. And the last thing I'll mention, I promise I won't keep rambling on, but the last thing I'll mention is there is the concept of our committee being involved in this. The concept is essentially kind of an RFP concept where essentially if a parcel comes up for sale, CPC funds are used to purchase that on behalf of the town. And with the thought of having an affordable housing restriction on that property, and then that parcel would be sold essentially for, say, $1 to a developer with an RFP already drawn up and ready to go, telling that developer exactly how they must develop that parcel. It must have X number of units. It must have, 70% workforce housing. A perfect example of this is the Wing School redevelopment in Sandwich. What they've done is incredible, and it's a poster child for this type of process. I believe 70% of that site will be affordable housing for workforce housing. So it's something that Jim Kupfer and his team are kind of more knowledgeable and educated on. But again, it lets you specifically inform a developer how a site is to be developed, and it also could be a good way for us to be involved. And again, I know the Housing Trust is really taking the lead on this, but I think it's a way for us to stay involved. So anyways, that's all I have. I just wanted to kind of give everyone an update about what the planning board's been up to. This letter has gone to town council. Council leadership is considering it, and hopefully we'll put it on the agenda for discussion and review, and hopefully some action will be taken, because there's a lot of great strategies here. And I think we should roll up our sleeves and get after it. That's what I got.
Any questions for Steve? I have one, is, seeing the housing production plan as well as the LCP work, the question I continually have when people start to run the numbers, has the new and current wastewater management plan factored in things like, allowing single family homes to be subdivided and enlarged to supply more bedrooms? That plan was based on a certain number of flow, and they're digging the pipe up Route 28. So
Right.
has anyone bothered to calculate that increased flow? I can't get an answer to that. We don't even have, and Tom Lee will tell you, a limit on how many bedrooms it can be hooked up on the existing single family home. So we're shooting for all these stars when it comes to this housing, but if the pipe ain't big enough, it ain't gonna happen. So
Yeah, I've definitely heard that question asked many times, and I'm hoping a detailed factual answer will come back. I can state that in the growth incentive zone, the CWMP looked at every lot and pictured that that lot was brought to its full potential, its full build out under the zoning. So I know that in terms of downtown Hyannis, that has been factored in, because again, those lots were looked at as if they were fully developed to their full potential. But yeah, the rest of it is a question mark.
it's not done.
Yeah, hopefully
It hasn't been done.
is an answer on that at some point. Yeah.
So anyway, and I hope,
mark.
and I hope at some point an actual number of units. That's the thing that's missing, because now we have the other factor of, quote, workforce housing. We haven't even got to community housing and taking care of that, and senior housing and all of those questions. Now we're going to put workforce housing. I just don't see where this is all going to happen. But I sit and I wait like you do, Steve, and you wonder, when is someone going to sit down with a pencil and paper and really plan it out?
Yeah, you need that info. You can't really proceed without it. So
You can't. All right. Well, very good. And keep us posted. We need this update every chance we get. Ellen, you
I
have
got
something?
a question for Steve. Steve,
oh yes, go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
do you have any information on the wing school development? I'm interested in see how they
Yeah.
in terms of the number wise, how they worked out. I mean, I follow it because I go by there every single day.
Yes, I definitely will. Maybe through Kyle, I'll have Kyle send some information out, because I know we've looked at that from afar and studied it from the standpoint of kind of a best practice. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, point taken. I'll see what can be shared through the planning and development staff.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Last item is meeting
Oh,
format.
Oh,
Ellen has her
Ellen had a
hand.
question.
Deb lost her connection and she wanted to thank you, Steve. But she also had a question as to whether we have the number of affordable units in town, if there is a list or a number. Yeah. Or if that's coming.
Yeah, the best thing I could point her to is that presentation that you forwarded from planning and development staff that gave a full update on housing production since 2017. That kind of it's kind of a dashboard slash scorecard of how we're doing as a town relating to affordable units. I believe we're around 7.5% affordable, something like that. So that's what I would point Deb and other members to.
Okay. Thank you.
Perhaps you could send that around again,
Yeah.
Ellen, for the next meeting. All right, the last item, meeting format for January 27th. Do we want to stay with electronic? Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, go
Wow.
with
All right, Ellen, we're going to stay electronic. So that'll be that. Any other business? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so move.
I'll second that.
Okay, great.
All members in favor, Ellen, if you'd read the roll.
Harry Duenas,
Yes.
Tom Lee,
Yes.
Farley Lewis,
Yes.
Steve Robichaud,
Yes.
and Lindsay Council.
Yes. Merry Christmas to everybody.